As members of Florida Phi Beta Lambda, you are dedicated to becoming the competent, aggressive business leaders of tomorrow. Through your growth and leadership, you have certainly helped our organization reimagine tomorrow. 1 year ago, you elected some individuals to serve as your PBL state officers. Throughout this year, they have worked diligently representing your interests in your local businesses, in your communities, and in your classrooms. They have connected with members and officers from across the nation and deserve recognition for their outstanding year of service. Members and advisors, it is a distinct pleasure to introduce the members of the 2020-2021 State Officer Team. Your parliamentarian, Amina Hussein. Amina is a longtime member of our organization, starting in the high school division of FBLA. She is currently pursuing her bachelor's degree at the University of Florida in Gainesville. Her plans include continuing to lead in PBL as we reimagine tomorrow. Your state secretary, Kelly Forte. Kelly is a graduate student at Florida International University. She has been a very active member of both FBLA and PBL and currently serves as the PBL National Vice President of Membership. Your District 1 Vice President, Ariel Trubea. Ariel joined our organization as a FBLA member in Miami. Ariel attends Florida State University. He is passionate about creating strong relationships and helping others find their strengths. Lastly, your state president, Samantha Ewing. Samantha also attends the University of Florida and joined the organization as an FBLA member in Pinellas County. Samantha truly believes in FBLA PBL and its ability to prepare members. Her goal is to create a lasting, positive experience on members and encourages them to take advantage of every opportunity that is presented. Please recognize the remaining members of the State Executive Council. District 1 Director, Glenda Bethel, Chipola College. District 3 Director, Jeanette Eberly, Weber University. And your District 5 Director, Kathy Monastaccio, Broward College. Members and advisors, your 2020-2021 Phi Beta Lambda State Leadership Team.
Florida State Leadership Conference of Phi Beta Lambda will now come to order. Welcome to the conference for which we have all been waiting. As Walt Disney once said, we keep moving forward, opening new doors and doing new things because we're curious, and curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. This is what each Florida PBL member has strived to do this year as we have worked together to uphold the ideals of our organization. Throughout this conference, I encourage you to reach outside of your comfort zone and make use of the opportunities provided to you by FBLA PBL. I challenge each and every one of you to take it upon yourselves to reimagine tomorrow throughout this conference, compete in your events, network with fellow members, and take full advantage of the workshops and internship opportunities. During the next few days, we will have the chance to prove that we are professionals as we compete with members from across the state. Show everyone that we know what it takes to succeed and that we are ready to make a difference in the world. It is time to show that we are the business leaders of today and tomorrow. So members and advisors, welcome to this year's State Leadership Conference. As we go through this conference, remember to work hard, show your PBL spirit, and continue tuning in to all this organization has to offer. Florida Phi Beta Lambda, this year we have shown that we are the future business leaders of the world. Let's continue to do so throughout this conference.
At this time, we will stand united to honor the spirit and ideals of our nation. We have been given these amazing opportunities regardless of background or stature. However, we would not have these freedoms if it's not for the legacies of courageous men and women who sacrifice many of the comforts we enjoy on a daily basis to defend our right to freedom. Will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the Phi Beta Lambda Pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please stay standing and join me in reciting the FBLA-PBL Pledge. I solemnly promise to uphold the aims and responsibilities of future business leaders of America, Phi Beta Lambda, and, as an active member, I shall strive to develop the qualities necessary in becoming a responsible business leader. Please be seated.
As members of the Phi Beta Lambda, you are part of a greater organization dedicated to building a stronger America by building stronger individuals. The growth you will experience as members of the Florida Phi Beta Lambda is the foundation upon which your personal and professional success will be built. To continue your growth, you should understand and live in high standards of beliefs that are in the words of the future business leaders of America, Phi Beta Lambda Creed. Please listen to the words of the FBLA-PBL Creed.
I believe education is the right of every person. I believe the future depends on mutual understanding and cooperation among business, industry, labor, religious, family, and educational institutions, as well as people around the world. I agree to do my utmost to bring about understanding and cooperation among all of these groups. I believe every person should prepare for a useful occupation and carry on that occupation in a manner that brings the greatest good to the greatest number. I believe every person should actively work towards improving social, political, community, and family life. I believe every person has the right to earn a living at a useful occupation. I believe every person should take responsibility for carrying out assigned tasks in a manner that brings credit to self, associates, school, and community. I believe I have the responsibility to work efficiently and to think clearly. I promise to use my abilities to make the world a better place for everyone.
Oprah once said, "A mentor is someone who allows you to see the hope inside of yourself." Thankfully for FBLA-PBL, the Board of Directors believes in the dreams of every member and helps guide us. Thanks to them, this conference has been made possible. We are pleased to have some Florida FBLA-PBL board members with us tonight. Over the years, these individuals have devoted their efforts to help promote the purpose and goals of Florida Phi Beta Lambda. Please help me recognize the members of our Board of Directors. Glenda Bethel, PBL Representative. Kathy Montesarcio, PBL Representative and Treasurer. Joanne Muniz, PBL Representative. Albert Amaya, Professional Division President. Chris Borg, Professional Division Representative. Tanya Alvarez, Professional Division Representative and Vice President. Robert Quinn, FabTems Representative. Samantha Ewing, PBL Student Representative. Melissa Baxley, FBLA Region 1 Representative. Melissa Conkle, FBLA Region 3 Representative. Kevin Schachter, FBLA Region 4 Representative. William Cohen, FBLA Region 5 Representative. Rylan Gonzalez, FBLA Student Representative. Alan Alvarez, Business and Industry Representative. Jody Jones, FBLA PBL State Advisor, and Ron Pierce, President and Chairman of the Board. Each year at this conference, it is the responsibility of the membership to elect the leaders who will serve as our state officers for the following year. Nominations have been accepted for the office of State President, State Vice President of Communications, and State Parliamentarian. The presidential candidate will have a total of 3 minutes, and the vice president candidate will have a total of 2 minutes to make a campaign speech. We will now proceed with the campaign speeches. There is one candidate for the office of Vice President of Communications. Our candidate is Amina Hussein from the University of Florida.
Hello there, Florida FBLA PBL. My name is Amina Hussein. I am going to be a 2021-2022 Vice President of Communications. Before I begin, I would like to say thank you to all of our advisors, members, state officer team, state advisor, board of directors, everyone else who have actually done everything they can to make this SLC possible. I know it's been a very rough time with everything going on, but we made it. We made it through the year, and soon we will be off to a greater and better chapter. As your Vice President of Communications, aside from performing my given duties, I will work with my state officer team and advisor to work on a few different things that will help benefit the organization. So some of these things is creating a mentorship program to help incoming and new members transition into the PBL community and their college journey. Work on a few different ways to improve our membership retention at the PBL level, and to work on an outreach program to be able to recruit more members from the high school level. With these goals combined with the goals of the other state officer team and the board of directors, we will do our best to continue to make this upcoming school year a great one and continue to reimagine tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Amina. Ladies and gentlemen, again, your candidate for the office of Vice President is Amina Hussein from the University of Florida. There is one candidate for the office of State President. Our candidate is Amori Pascariu from the Florida International University.
Greetings, everybody. My name is Amori Pascariu, and I'm the current chapter president of the PBL chapter at Florida International University. And I'm running to be your PBL state president for 2021 through 2022. During my time now as chapter president at FIU, I've been able to grow myself not only as a leader, but as a person as well, especially under the circumstances. Being a leader during the COVID-19 pandemic has had its fair share of problems that I've had to address and find creative solutions to. One of these creative solutions that my officer team and I worked towards was our plan to foster greater collaboration with our fellow District 5 PBL chapters. Through this, I was able to connect with other chapter presidents in our district and plan collaborative events together while sharing our membership and growing bonds with other PBL members right here in South Florida. It is with this success that I developed my platform for my campaign, which is a simple message for all of our members. Communication is key. Now, what does the slogan mean? It sounds simple enough, right? Well, this slogan is the name of my 3-point plan to achieve my goal of increasing communication and correspondence between the state and local chapters. The 3 points for this plan are as follows. Number 1, pushing for a greater social media presence. Number 2, creating communication channels between the state and local chapters. And number 3, creating collaborative events to help local chapters communicate and collaborate with each other. In pushing for a greater social media presence, I would increase followers on the Florida FBLA PBL Instagram page by reaching out to local chapters and encouraging the local officers to share the page with their members. In addition to this, I would also increase post frequency on the Instagram page, as well as share events from local chapters on the stories page. As for my goal of creating communication channels between the state and local chapters, my first action would be to create a group chat between the state board and each local chapter president. In this group chat, I would encourage everyone to network with each other and to share any of their opportunities with the rest of the group. Finally, in addition to this, I would also facilitate direct communication from the state by providing any relevant updates regarding changes or updates at the state level. My final course of action for this initiative would be to create collaborative events to help local chapters communicate and collaborate with each other. To achieve this, I would apply some of the same collaborative ideas that I helped create at the local level, such as collaborative mock competitions or fun events to help people network and socialize with each other. It is with this that I promise you, the Florida FBLA PBL members, that if elected as your PBL state president, I will follow through on these goals and I will make our organization far more effective in communication. And with that, we together can create a Florida FBLA PBL where we're all just a little closer together.
One candidate has been approved for the office of parliamentarian. The candidate is Christopher Chamorro from Florida International University. The parliamentarian will be the applicant making the highest score on the written test for parliamentary procedure.
Thank you to the candidates for all of your hard work. Running for an office takes a lot of time and a lot of courage. Please stop by the campaign booths tomorrow. The links are inside the conference app. In addition, you should go to our website at www.floridafblapbl.com to see more information about the candidates. Then voting delegates, please remember to vote tomorrow between 12 and 4 p.m. Voting delegates, the link is in our conference app and you have been emailed your username and password.
We are proud to welcome 4 special guests to our annual business panel. Members, get your notepads ready for a discussion full of insight and key advice you can use in preparation for your future careers.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us at Florida PBL's 2021 SLC Business Panel. My name is Kelly Porte. I am Florida PBL State Secretary and the National Vice President of Membership. We're here today to hear important insights from you all as career professionals, and we're hoping this will help some of our budding future business leaders. So we're going to begin by having everyone introduce themselves and maybe share a little bit about their career journeys.
Well, Kelly, I'll go first. Hi, everybody. Ron Pierce. I am the president and CEO of RSA Consulting Group, which is a lobbying firm based out of Tampa Bay. We represent a number of different companies out of the Tampa Bay area. The majority of what we do is before the Florida legislature, and we do a little bit before local government out of the Tampa Bay area as well. Probably the most important piece of my background is I'm a former member of Florida FLE PBL. I'm a former officer at the state and national levels in Phi Beta Lambda. And as I'll talk a lot about today, is I can tell you that my direct success as a professional is linked back to my time within the organization. So with that being said, I'll kick it over to Sherry.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for this opportunity. I am Sherry Hoback. I am president and CEO of Tampa Family Health Centers. I have spent a large part of my career here at Tampa Family Health Centers, almost 15 years I've been here. I have worn many hats, which I think goes back to my experience leading up to the role. I am a nurse by profession. I started out here as the director of nursing and moved up the rank and file, and here I am today holding the honored seat of leading this amazing organization. A little bit about my background. I started out in nursing. I always knew I wanted to take care of the community and our patients and make sure that healthcare was accessible to everyone. But I certainly knew that I was going to be more beneficial on the business side than I was going to be on the patient care side. So I did my time as a hands-on nurse, and then I moved up the administrative rank and file in healthcare, working everything from your carriers, your insurance groups, to legal, and ultimately landing here in community health. So thank you, and welcome everyone. It's glad to see everyone on the panel today.
So I'm Jolynn Loki, and again, thank you for having me today. I am the COO at Visit Tampa Bay. Visit Tampa Bay is a small nonprofit organization who we market ourselves to the entire world, trying to get people to travel into our destination. So it's everything from large conventions like the RNC or DNC, smaller conventions like the Thoracic Surgeons Group. And then we also market to the leisure traveler. And we do that with airlines and cruise lines, helping with route development. And then we also market through, we have the Sports Commission that works here with us, and the Film Commission. So they're marketing the destination to get people to come here to bring their sporting events. We just spent the last year planning all the ancillary events around the Super Bowl. And we, proved to the rest of the world that we can do these big events safely, and through social distancing and practicing everything that we needed to do, we were able to have this huge citywide event, and it didn't create spikes in COVID. So we're pretty proud of how we handled that event. I've been with the company for about 15 years. I started in human resources. I have a master's of human resource development. And then I kind of just acquired board relations and accounting and administration and whatever else, and eventually became the COO. So.
I guess that leaves me. Good morning, everybody. My name is Hernandez, and I am the founder and managing director of Omni Public. We are a full suite public affairs and public relations firm, and we specialize in introducing new concepts and ideas into the marketplace, and we navigate media, government, and industry for our clients. Have worked with companies such as Tesla, Hyperloop Transportation Technologies, Bird Rides, Ford, and more recently, now. So started my career as a legislative aide at City Council at City Hall, and then moved on to doing intergovernmental relations for a transit agency, the Hillsborough Area Regional Transit Authority. But I really think that my career started when I was student body president at USF, so go Bulls. That's really when you started to connect with other trustees and other credible actors in the area and policymakers. And that's really where I got the bug for the legislative process and also the procurement process and really how business to government works.
Thank you all for those introductions. So for our first question, it will be, in terms of balancing personal and professional life, what have you sacrificed in certain stages of your career?
I'll go first. As my team will tell you, is I have zero life balance. So, you know, especially when you're building a company, by the way, you know, there is no life balance because as you're building a company, that's something that you put all your time and effort into that. And so, you know, obviously, you know, there's been a number of times where, you know, obviously, you know, my family's always first, but there's been sacrifices where I've had to miss family events, or, you know, my son plays baseball, having to miss that. But I have a very understanding, I think, wife and family to understand that as I've been kind of building the company, you know, there's been sacrifices along the way to be able to, I think, to be able to do that. So, and everybody's going to hear, is, you know, if, you know, for those of you that are watching this today about, you know, this life balance is what you make of it. And so we're all busy, and, you know, you can always make more time. And so, you know, one of the things that I've tried to do over the last year, for example, is make more time for me. I mean, you know, a lot of times that's probably one of the things I've done a terrible job over the years, is spending time for me. And so making sure that exercise in the morning, I've got some quiet time where it's just time for me. It's funny, a few years ago, I started working out with a personal trainer, and she asked me, like, so why are you doing this? And, you know, the most honest answer I could give is because this is the only thing I do in my entire day that is solely about me. And so, you know, I think one of the things I would, you know, hopefully leave the listeners with is, you know, don't forget about you as you're kind of, you know, climbing your ladder of success.
Yeah, if I can jump on to that, and I'm glad to hear Ron say that, because it's honest. And a lot of time I hear executives talking about this delicate balancing act. But as a business owner, the company, you're always on 24/7. And I'm constantly thinking about the company, how to make it better, prospecting, what processes we can make better in the company so that we can stay afloat, because it's different when you start signing the front of the check and you have people that work for you that have families, and you start thinking about those things, and you start thinking about, well, what else can I do to improve my process, to improve my client experience, to improve the experience of the members of my team. And I'm infatuated with it. Like, I love what I do, and I'm so passionate about it that it marriages with my life, right? And you do sacrifice time with your family. I have a 5-year-old, and he knows that when I'm taking a client call, or even if I have to do something for work, or if I have to run up to Tallahassee, right? He'll say things like, well, why you gotta go to Tallahassee today, Daddy? Or like, are you talking business right now, Daddy? And he already hears those words, and then I hear him say it back to me. But at the end of the day, you're a good experience for your family, because one of the things that I heard him say while he was doing Career Week is that he wants to be a CEO and he wants to be a business owner. And he's just like, Daddy. And I don't know if he knows what that means, but he's hearing those things, you know, and I'm sure Ron feels the same way, because I don't know if I heard you say this a while ago, that, you know, you built RSA Consulting because you want to leave something for your family, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why we do it. And so instead of trying to balancing work life, like I married the two and you make it work.
So I just want to echo what Ron and Caesar said about it is so important to do something that you love, because if you are going to be successful and elevate yourself in any career, it becomes a part of your life. So again, that balance is whatever you make of it. And for me, I found yoga. It is the best thing to truly take your mind away for 1 hour a day. The things I've had to sacrifice is I've been working for 16 years to market this destination to travelers to come into our destination. And it's probably been over a dozen years since I've taken a week-long vacation myself. So I actually have one planned for my 50th birthday in May, so I'll make up for it.
I think in closing to everyone's really insightful words of wisdom with balance, I personally never really looked at it as a work-life balance. I tackled it in a way that as a healthcare professional, we are ingrained in our DNA to serve, and serve means every holiday, every weekend, every evening. So I think my approach was a little different when I got into it, because I kind of knew leaving college that was what I was signing up for initially. But a part of balance, that adage of, we hear through the generations is, make sure you love what you do. And I think what you heard from everyone here is that we all love our companies, what we've built, and it becomes a part of who you are, which becomes a part of your dinners at home. It becomes a part of your conversations. It becomes a part of your daily walk by yourself. Like Caesar said, you're constantly thinking about how to improve. You see a sign over here, you see a way someone's marketing something, you're taking a note in your phone to do it. But I think that the theme through this whole conversation has been mental wellness and wellness. And as leaders, as you start your journey as a young professional, I think I encourage you to start young with mental health and wellness, and making sure that you do those daily self-checks for yourself, and you start to incorporate that time in at a very young age of your professional career. So as you grow up, you're not in a situation like we were trying to fit it in versus have it incorporated into. And I think that puts you really far ahead, so that the balance becomes a lot more manageable.
Leading on from this, I specifically wanted to ask this question to Sherry and Jolyn. Since you guys have explained in your introductions that you've started at an entry position and have worked your way up in your companies, what do you think is the most significant barrier to female leadership?
So in my situation, over the last decade or so, I found myself oftentimes being the only woman in the room, the only woman in the boardroom. And it was, I think I've had situations a lot of times where I have a great idea and I'm going to throw that idea out there and I'm going to be strong. I'm going to fight for the idea if I think that it's something right and something for the company. And what I noticed a lot of times, there's a group think when you have all the same people in the room or all men in the room, and it almost becomes, you're looked at in a certain light because you're presenting something a matter of factly. So I spent the last 10 years, and I have a very supportive CEO who believes in inclusion. And I had to go out and seek women to be on our board. As you look around Tampa, and we usually pick the number ones of all our attractions and hotels, the leaders of the port and the airport and Busch Gardens and GMs at hotels, and they were all men. So I was like, so now we have to look at a number two, a chief marketing officer, a COO, and find somebody to bring to the table who doesn't look like everybody else. And I had to fight my way through that. And now we're in a position, we have a completely diverse board. The conversations around the table are completely different. They come from all different avenues, and I think it's lent to a lot of positive changes in our organization. But it was, you know, I had some challenges on getting more people, more women, especially around the table. So.
You know, for me, I think, you know, I'll start by saying, you know, as a community-based healthcare agency, you know, one of our founding principles is that we are diversified to represent the organization and the community for which we serve. And that serves in all rank and file of our organization. And it is a beautiful thing. From our board of directors to my executive team, I have over 51% of my executive team are females in high-ranking positions, to our staff. But needless to say that the journey, it was not all rainbows and unicorns. I certainly remind myself every day, especially when I was starting out in the early managerial ranks and director ranks, that, you know, I put my pants on the same way as everyone else does. And, you know, when you walked into that boardroom, very similar, I for many years walked in and was the only female in the boardroom. But I just never, I appreciated it, but I never looked at it that way, because I knew that I was succinct in my pitch and my presentation and the information, and that I had a mission to serve this community and serve the organization to ensure that we were the #1 healthcare provider. And by and large, you start to really realize how to develop those relationships and support yourself with other individuals around you that are very like-minded. I have several female friends, very close friends, that are CEOs in the area, and it's a wonderful thing. You know, it is great to have the empowerment, but I always reminded myself that, you know, every day when I walked into the boardroom, my mission was the same as everyone else's there. And I was going to win them over and make sure that we continue to strive and be the best we can be here at Tampa Family.
I have a funny story I wanted to add to that, but when we were having a meeting, and again, 25 men in the room, and one gentleman walked over to me. He was new to the board, and he looked over at me. He said, "Could you get me a cup of coffee with cream and sugar?" And I'm like, absolutely. I went into the kitchen, got him a cup of coffee, showed him where it was for next time. And I had our young lady up front, a receptionist. She's like, "Why did you get him a cup of coffee? Why didn't you tell him you were in this meeting?" And, you know, it's very important you need to do whatever it takes, and nothing can be beneath you. And I'm going to be open and welcome and hospitable to anyone. And just because I have a seat around the table doesn't mean that I'm too good to help somebody out or to be hospitable. And I have an excellent relationship with that gentleman till this day, and he's one of my biggest supporters.
Thank you, Sherry and Jolyn. For the next question, I wanted to start off with Caesar. As a student myself, I have seen the requirements for entry-level positions change over the years. As a finance student myself, I have seen the requirements change from knowing Excel to start to begin knowing already how to code using Python. So in your respective careers, what advice would you give to those trying to enter your field compared to from when you began in your own careers?
Well, I'd say the first thing is don't be afraid to be humbled, right? The first thing that I did was a community organizer, right? And when I would work on local campaigns, I was making the coffee, I was buying the donuts, the copies. I was a gopher, right? That's what they call the gopher. And I was just doing what needed to be done. Oftentimes there was no pay involved, right? Then when I landed my first position as a legislative aide, it's still a little bit of a glorified gopher because you're doing a ton of the work and making sure that whoever it is that you're staffing or working for gets all the proper materials. So it's long hours, right? But you gotta love it. And I wouldn't trade those experiences for the world because they make me a better professional, right? And then so what I've seen in some of the interns that we've gotten is that automatically they may want to start as like high level executive or be in very high level sensitive meetings, and that because of the proximity of you working within a company, sometimes you get this effect, whereas you may think that, oh, I'm here for 6 months, I know these conversations, I'm ready, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you are, right? It's taken a long time to understand how to conduct a meeting, how to have certain conversations, how to conduct yourself with a client, how to orchestrate certain strategies, right? But I always go back to my time as a gopher, as an organizer, as an aide, and that humbling experience because it taught me discipline, right? So it takes the time that it takes, and don't be afraid to take a position that you may think is beneath you, because what it is building character. And it built character in me because as a consultant, things always go wrong, and you have to get comfortable in uncomfort, right? And that just has to become commonplace to be able to navigate that uncertainty, because that's what your clients want to do, is navigate uncertainty for them. But I always lean back to very humble beginnings of grabbing a cup of coffee and maybe bringing it back, and it wasn't the way they wanted it, or they wanted the water, but they don't want bottled water. It has to be filled in their cup, right? Small things like that, where you're just like, you know what, I'm gonna eat it because I'm learning, I'm here, I'm meeting the right people, and then you start building character that way.
Thank you, Caesar. So this is a common question that gets asked a lot at panels, but it is one that is very interesting to hear because it really varies throughout each professional depending on their career journeys, the struggles that they've been through. If you can go back in time and talk to your younger self, maybe give yourself some advice, warn yourself of some things that you might experience in the future, what would you say?
I would say to save more money. Start putting money in the 401k a lot sooner, because your, retirement ends up creeping up on you a lot quicker than you expect it to. And especially when you get, into your career, in the heart of your career in your 30s and 40s, and you're so busy and time starts to fly by. So save money and take time to enjoy yourself a little bit more.
Kelly, mine would be whatever you think your plan's going to be, it's not going to be that. Everybody, you get in college and you think, oh, I'm going to do A, B, and C, and you get there and you're not doing A, B, and C. And I'm a perfect example of that, by the way, because when I was in college, I had the pleasure of being one of the PBL National Vice Presidents and PBL National President. And I'm doing that. I'm thinking, I'm going to law school. I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to end up running for office someday. I ended up not going to law school. I'm like, well, I'll start working for a couple of elected officials. And I'll do that to run for office someday. And you fast forward, not only did I not run for office, I ended up becoming a lobbyist. And so it's just whatever you think that plan's going to be, it's not going to be what you may think, but go with it, because as you're building those building blocks, it's opening doors you don't even know are going to open for you in the future.
Yeah, I would definitely echo their words. I definitely say one of the best pieces of advice I was ever given when I graduated is, my dear, it's just a piece of paper. What you do with that piece of paper will be up to you. And that was mind blowing as a young professional. You know, what do you mean? And you have to trust the process. You have to trust the journey. I think as we heard, all of us had visions of what we were going to do when we walked across the stage and got that degree and where we were supposed to go. And 5 years from then, it was a completely different trajectory. And I don't think most of us would have changed that. You just have to trust the process. I love Jolynn's comment about saving and 401ks. I think there needs to be more emphasis on starting out as a young professional and making sure that you do have your financial foot in line and understanding of what you need to be doing for saving for the future. I know when you are 24, 60, 62 seems so far away, but it is here. Things happen and plans and savings. So I think if you start out with a good savings foundation, live below your means always live below your means. I think that's another great adage that all of us have taken with us. And I've certainly learned through the years that'll make you a very happy person in your future.
I would say a couple of things, right? The first one is, if I was speaking to myself, is that you never know who your boss is gonna be, right? And that leads into the second one. You never know who's watching, right? And I got my first gig as a community organizer, speaking at a conference as a student. And then I got my second gig as a aide because a city councilwoman noticed all of my organizing efforts in the university area, right? So it wasn't like I was applying, I just didn't know who was watching. And I was doing all these things, not because I had like an end in sight, but because I was passionate about those things. And I was super active as a student, right? Ultimately, I was student body president, but I was in every organization, and people would say, why are you so active? Why are you constantly doing these things? But that, like, the university is a sandbox, right? So you can tinker. And some of those very same things that I was tinkering with as a student, I do them running my company, but I had the pleasure of attempting these initial things under a university setting, right? So you never know who's watching, you never know who's gonna be your boss, and don't be afraid to tinker at all. And I would like to also kind of state that it is important to save your money, right? And I had the pleasure of learning from other people's mistakes when I became a business owner, because I would talk to other executives and ask them for they didn't even know they were giving me advice, because I would like grab lunch with them. And even one time I asked Ron about how he structures his team, and he kind of like went off for like 15 minutes and I wrote it down, right? But I would ask other executives like, oh, so what are you thinking about this? And there was one person that I thought was brilliant. And his name's Ned Pope. He helped to found the Tampa Bay Wave. And he had a consulting firm, and he stopped and he began to work for Agile Thought. And he said to me, I had 4 awesome big time paying clients. And all of a sudden, within 2 months, the 4 clients stopped their contracts. Not because I wasn't doing a good job, right? Not because there wasn't any communication, but the consultant's always the first to go, right? Even if you're doing great, it's just strategy change, C-suite changes, who knows? And he goes, I lost those 4. I got way too comfortable on those 4 contracts, and I just could never build the pipeline back up. And then I got offered a gig. So I'm constantly thought, well, that means that, prospecting is the lifeblood of your company. And so I'm constantly prospecting, researching potential clients, and I'm always pitching, right? So if you're a brand new business owner, remember, capital is the lifeblood of a company. So continue to pitch.
Thank you. Now that we've talked about the past, we're going to blast into the future. A lot of students, when they go towards the next step in their lives, they may get decision paralysis. Once we get into college, we may think, well, I spent my whole life preparing to get to college and now I'm here, now what? The same thing may happen when we transfer from school life to full-time work. I wanted to know, what are your 10-year career goals or life goals? And the goal of mine to hear from your questions is to show students that it doesn't just stop once you have the job. You can continue advancing and having new goals.
So, I mean, this may sound terrible, but I don't have a 10-year goal. I think my career path, I'm always evaluating what I'm doing. And like we said earlier, you kind of take the path where it leads you, and it organically grows. I mean, I know I want to retire by a certain age, or I want to pay off my house at a certain time. But as far as the career path takes me, I'm just going to keep on this journey. I'm really passionate about what I do in the industry. And whether, I think for a long time, for about 10 years, my goal was to be the CEO of a destination marketing organization. And that's not so much the case anymore. I like what I'm doing now in this role. Not necessarily fighting for that #1 spot, because what I realized, I might be missing some things around me, some learning opportunities, or a way to make this role bigger, or a way to help other DMOs across the country through advocacy. So I think it might be a little dated to have that, what do you want to do in 3, 5, and 10 years, and where do you want to be? Because opportunities are always in front of us, and I think we need to, take advantage of what comes along.
I agree with Jolene 100%. I don't think it's as much of like a 10-year goal as much as it's like life goals. And so I'm reading a book right now, and one of the things it talks about is, all in our lives, we set daily goals and weekly goals and goals for the year. And we all have to-do lists. I've got a book of to-do lists, right here on my desk. But we don't have a life to-do list. And that life to-do list can include all kinds of really cool things. It could be travel, different things you want to travel and be able to do over your life. It could be professional. There's different things that, maybe I still want to run for office someday, or I want to continue to build a company, or we want to open another branch office, or we want to reach 100 clients someday. It could be personal. It could be something from, you want to run a marathon someday, or a triathlon or something. And so I'm not sure it's as much as a 10-year goal, but I really encourage, especially young professionals, to kind of develop kind of what your life goal list looks like and put it somewhere we can see it. And the cool thing about life goal list is there's plenty of books out there. You can Google life goal list. You can see what other people have. Feel free to borrow from that, but make sure you're personalized at things that you care about and things that you're very passionate about that you're going to want to accomplish.
I would certainly say that in 10 years, I would hopefully I'll be thinking about retirement at some point. The gray hair is coming in way too fast. But I will tell you that I agree with both. I think, for my generation, it was about having those plans. What I've certainly learned with our new graduating classes that are entering the workforce, that your mantra is very diversified in how you approach business. You might be in a situation where you're working for 2 different firms or multiple organizations, or you might have a passion in one area, but also start a small business in another area. That's very different from my generation, where it was really, you get the diploma and you go to a career field and then you start achieving your goals. I think we've learned a lot from all of you. And I think that's the important thing for me is I love being a mentor. I think one of the opportunities of being a CEO is having the opportunity over the years to mentor the next generation of, for me, healthcare professionals and taking a little bit of what I've learned. And I've made it evidently clear to my staff and my family that, teaching and writing a book and doing town halls is my next platform of where I want to go. I mean, if I want to give back, I've learned a lot. I think I've got a lot of fun, humorous stories that can help people along the way, but also too, I didn't have mentors. This is phenomenal. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I didn't have a roadmap. I didn't have individuals that I could call up and bounce ideas off of. So I definitely think that, for me, it's a give back that I would like to do in the next, 10, 15 years, so that I can start sharing a little bit of this knowledge. I certainly know when I stepped into this seat, there was a little bit of uncharted territory as well. So even having CEO mentorship to bring new up and coming CEOs or any executive into a role, I think is vital to a success of an organization.
Thank you, Sherry. This question I wanted to ask Ron first. Obviously in PBL, we do a lot of teamwork through competitions, running chapters, even organizing events. So I wanted to know from your perspective what the importance of having a really solid team is.
Absolutely, and it's not as much as about the, I think, team at the end of the day, Kelly. It's about the culture that you're building within the organization and bringing people that are within that organization that can be successful in that culture, but more importantly, add to the culture of the organization as well. We have 5 team members, and I will tell you, we've had to make moves over the year where we've brought people in that just ended up not fitting into really the culture of us as an organization. And what I mean by culture, I think one of the things that I think we live by at RSA is this is a team environment. It's not one person over another. It's not about titles. At the end of the day, the only thing we care about is the success of our clients. We don't care how we get there. We don't care who's doing it. We just care that we as a team need to be adding value to make sure that our clients are successful. And so I think bringing people that can that can buy into that culture is so important. Let me share with you one, as an officer, I think one of the probably biggest experiences I gained from PBL was when I was PBL national president. I had an officer team of 9 student leaders from across the country. And I will tell you, having 9 student leaders from across the country come in, we all had different ideas and different goals and had different ways wanting to accomplish it. We had different personalities. We all had different leadership styles. And, here I am, supposedly the PBL national president, trying to manage all these personalities and all this leadership in the room. And it was probably one of the most challenging experiences I ever had as a leader, because trying to work with, 8 other leaders that were very much like me and trying to buy into that, look, we all want to be successful. We all want to pull in the right direction, was such a challenge. It was probably one of the biggest challenges I ever had as a student leader. And going through it, I'm like, well, this is a terrible experience, because I never thought my year would be having to deal with personalities and deal with so many things that were behind the scenes. Because on stage, we looked like a fantastic officer team, but behind stage, I had a lot of personality conflicts and bickering and some other things that were going on. I wouldn't change that experience for anything in the world, because at the end of the day, I grew so much as a leader at such a young age, having to deal with that conflict, but able to now transfer that now to as a CEO, to be able to kind of build my team around some of those experiences and some of the leadership skills I gained as a part of that process.
So for me, for the team around me, I think I always want to hire people who complement me. So if I'm very big picture, I have a lot of people around me that are very detail oriented, and they're pointing out facts in front of me when I'm in the process of making a decision. And I want to hire really, really smart people. I want people around me that are smarter than me. And I think sometimes people's egos get in the way, and they're afraid to hire someone who might be smarter than them in one area or another area. But I want everyone around me to be smarter than me. And it takes, you want to make sure the culture of your team, you're very inclusive, you're empowering people around you, and allowing ideas to come forth.
Thank you all. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the elephant in the room. Of course, COVID has changed a lot of how we conduct business and even school life, personal life throughout the past year. And I wanted to ask how that has changed your business life and how your functions, how has COVID changed your professional lives?
Sure, I can kind of begin with that. For our company, what we saw is that what COVID has shined a light on is that people have a limited amount of resources, right? So the world already had scarcity, but now the resources that were allocated needed to be put behind performers. So people that can produce and that can perform. When the pandemic hit, our company began to grow because what companies were looking at, and we represent a lot of startups, a lot of tech startups, is instead of having these very large in-house staff that probably weren't producing as much, they would rather bring on a firm and get a full suite of options and a full team. And after 3 months, within probably like the height of the pandemic, we started getting a lot of companies coming to us and asking if we can take over their communications, right? Their in-house communications, their external communications. Likewise, we also started not just getting companies that were letting go of people, but then companies that were letting go of other consulting firms and saying, this consulting firm really hasn't been producing for us. They were getting a pretty fat retainer, but we heard that you do good work. So there was a shift where it's now, because of the pandemic, if you're good at what you're doing, then you're going to continue to do so. And if you weren't doing so well and you were kind of just getting by, it shed a light on it, because in a world of scarcity, and then now you put on the pandemic, and people were being extremely careful with how they allocate their resources. They wanted to put it behind performers. So what it did for us is it shined a light on us, because now we had to perform and we did really well. And then we began to grow. And I actually hired 3 people within the pandemic, right? And I just made a hire 2 weeks ago. Our communications practice has started growing extensively. So we brought on board a 25-year veteran of news from Spectrum, right? To help all of our communications clients out with their needs. So that's what the pandemic has done for us. Now we're extremely cautious, right? Likewise, everything that the company brings in, I'm always looking at how can I continue to reinvest it into the company? And I'm extremely cautious with the resources of the firm, because I know that I have a team that's relying on me as the owner to continue to bring in clients and continue to feed the company so that we can continue to practice.
Where do I even begin? From the healthcare sector, I can tell you, as a nurse working in emergency medicine and facing life and death situations and watching those challenges and traumas unfold in front of you was nothing compared to what I dealt with as a CEO last year, balancing being able to take care of not only my company and my staff, which are my #1 assets, but making those tough decisions of, sustainability and being able to stay open. I am proud Tampa Family was able to keep our doors open every day during this pandemic, as well as kept my staff on, because that was a mission of myself and the board of directors, is that we were going to keep our staff on because we wanted to make sure that they were taken care of during this pandemic. It has definitely changed healthcare. It has changed the way that we are looking at how we administer healthcare. It has changed the way that we look at how we take healthcare for granted on many levels, serving the medically underserved and underinsured, our African American and Hispanic population have been the most adversely affected by this pandemic. And we have worked tirelessly with not only the federal government, but our local and state governments to find ways to bridge the insecurities gap. Here at Tampa Family, you know, we have a very robust case management program. We have a food pantry downstairs. We have a lot of programs that had to be put on hold because we had to protect the safety of not only the community, but our staff. So we were really streamlining the approach to get our patients into the healthcare center. Our big concern as we were kind of fighting that curve and going into the third and fourth quarter of last year is all the care that our patients weren't receiving because they were scared to come in for the pandemic. So blood pressure medications weren't being refilled. Our cardiovascular patients weren't being seen. Our asthmatics weren't getting their refills. So there's going to be a very long haul ahead for healthcare to make sure that we can get our patients back to where they need to be. But as a leader of this organization, it was humbling. And I told my board that this was the most humbling, trying year, enlightening year as a CEO, and I don't think I'll ever be the same. And I think that I will lead differently because of this. And I think that when we had Zika and we had the swine flu, and those were nothing compared to what happened in 2020. And so I think as a leader, it has definitely shaped our way. But from a healthcare perspective, things are going to look a lot different in healthcare for the next 5 to 10 years. I think we're going to see a lot of positive changes because of COVID. And I look forward to seeing how that's going to shift our industry.
Probably the only thing I can add is, I think one of our biggest challenges has been how we communicate, because in our business everything is one-on-one with people, or we're constantly traveling, and so all of a sudden over the last year, where everything now has become virtual, or conference calls or text, and so information's power in my business, because clients expect us to understand what's happening and why it's happening in real time. And there was many times during the middle of the pandemic, things were happening, and try to explain to clients what's happening and why it's happening was difficult. And so, I think, and not having my team in place, because we're used to being in the office together all the time. I mean, there was a period of time basically from, March, April, and May, we weren't together. We were all working from home. And so, we had daily interaction as a team through conference calls or Zoom meetings, but all of a sudden you go from being in a team environment where you're seeing each other on a daily basis and having to manage that, because some members of your team handle that better than others. And so, as a leader, understanding how the pandemic's impacting members of your team versus others is really important, because I'm sure Sherry will tell you from a healthcare standpoint, mental health is something that I think it's been highlighted during the pandemic, and different people are managing the stress of the pandemic differently. And so I think as a leader, one of the things I had to do is take a step back and recognize, when to push or when not to push, or working with clients, understanding the situation they're going through, and making sure that I'm trying to pass along the best possible information in a pretty stressful environment, because some of these people were having to close their businesses based upon what the federal and state government was doing to them, and explain to them why it was happening, and more importantly, what next steps could be, but doing it in such a way that, again, from a stress standpoint, is trying to do the best we can to communicate with our clients, I think was a big challenge for us during the pandemic.
Okay, and with that concludes our 2021 PBL Business Panel. I want to thank Ron, Sherry, Jolynn, and Caesar. Thank you so much on behalf of the membership for coming in and speaking with us today. I'm sure all the membership will find all of your insights very helpful in their budding careers. Okay.
Panelists, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. You have certainly inspired us to help us reimagine tomorrow.
Please listen carefully to the following important conference announcements. You may want to take notes. Remember that the links to all of the performance events are located in the conference app and have been sent to the chapter advisors as well. All competitors should log into their event 15 minutes prior to their performance time and wait patiently to be let into the room. The administrator will let you in when it is time to prep or perform. Be sure to pay attention to the chat. Florida FBLA PBL dress code is required for all performance events. Tomorrow's testing is open from 7 a.m. until 6 p.m. Eastern Time. No one will be allowed to start testing after 5 p.m. to allow you a complete hour to finish your test.
This year, we are thrilled to have a wonderful set of workshops featuring soft skills and having resume review. Our workshops include topics such as decision-making in high-stress situations, leadership mindsets, mastering self-motivation, getting into the mind of the hiring manager, management foundations, and many more. In addition to the workshops, you have the opportunity to interview for a 10-week internship. If you have not already signed up for your interview, please go to the app and do so now. These professional development activities will take place throughout the day on Saturday. Not only are these activities a critical component of getting the most out of our State Leadership Conference, but they will help you grow professionally.
Please be sure to participate in all of our activities throughout the conference. We will be distributing door prizes to randomly drawn participants after the conference.
If you have not already done so, please make sure you go ahead and download the official app, YAP. Through the app, you'll find the latest conference news, updates, and information.
There being no further business, the first general session of Florida Phi Beta Lambda 2021 State Leadership Conference is now adjourned.